the spotlight on these narrative theme stocks, right? When you talk about the narrative theme, it has to be last year you did see that rally come about in the PSU counters, be it the power space, be it defense, be it for the matter of fact railways as well. And if I could add to that list as QSR space also saw a lot of excitement when you talk over the last one to 1.5 years or so. Do you think they will make a comeback, and should now people actually avoid, or investors avoid, looking at this entire narrative theme and look at select pockets where you have valuation comfort instead?
The PSU theme, broadly, according to me, has again seen the worst. The PSU pack as a whole going forward is likely to outperform the markets. Already a lot of pessimism has got built into it, and the last 6-9 months has been very damaging for the PSU space as a whole. It's coming back from the lows. Earnings growth broadly are intact for most of the well-known PSU. And you have valuations which have got corrected. So according to me, the PSU theme will again come back into the limelight. You have a certain pockets of these, and of course, all the PSU names are up from their lows, quite to say the least. And that is where I stand as far as the PSU packaging. I was never very bearish on PSU as a page, but now even more bullish because the valuations have come off and earnings growth is intact. Dividend yields are very good. As far as the QSR space is concerned, this quarter numbers again is a mixed bag. Some of the names, particularly the pizza ones, have delivered good numbers, but valuations are exorbitant. The burger space, again, the numbers have not come in as expected, but still keeping the faith as far as FY27 projections on some of these companies are concerned. The turnover guidance which they've given, and even the operating leverage on the margins front should come through. So broadly, valuation, of course, you can't really expect a runaway growth because the valuations are slightly on the elevated side. But these are very decent quality businesses where if the earnings growth comes through, then broadly, I expect that the second half of this year would be better than the first half of this year in the QSR space. And broadly, if I'm bullish on consumption, then this is one space which I think would stand out. Some of the names like your Jubilant, or let's say a Zomato, which are there in our portfolio, I think we tend to stick with these guys and believe that they could deliver broadly in the medium to long term.
Manish, you've spoken about QSR, we've touched upon consumer discretionary, but what's your view when it comes to core FMCG? Because this time volume growth has been better than expected, even though it's nominally better, but still it's been better than expected. Revenue expansion has happened in across the board. What's your take when it comes to core FMCG, given that on the fundamental side, we're also expecting a very good monsoon this year? And although urban demand has not picked up to the extent we would have liked it to be, it's still now picking up some ground when compared to rural demand. So what's your take on FMCG now?
The only concerning fact is the valuation front vis-a-vis the growth. I mean, can't expect more than a 10 to 12% sort of revenue growth, and of course, companies would be vying for the volume growth per se because inflation is going to be very benign. So it's a pick and choose, where growth vis-a-vis valuations have to come into perspective. On a broad basis, consumption would tend to get a lift. Broadly, now that the IMD has predicted good monsoons even this year, rural economy is coming out of the corner from the last 2 years, downturn, and these would help at the margin. On the headwind side, in the FMCG names, it's going to be evaluations. There's nothing more to basically look into it. It's basically growth and valuations. It will be a pick and choose.
Right, Manish, but the other thing that I wanted to have your take is on the impact of the tariff. Well, of course, some of the experts do believe that the worst with respect to the tariff is now behind us. We are already seeing some of the negotiations that are underway. But while this news flow was around, Manish, all these export-related counters were seen to be taking a backseat. We have seen a sell-off in some of these select pockets. But now what we are getting to hear is that the tariff implications are not expected to be that severe versus what was anticipated earlier. Do you believe there stands a chance where once again we can look at some of these pockets?
Yeah, so I think that has got to do with the US recession, the probability of US recession, how big or how shallow that's going to be. That's one. And the US dollar, now that Moody's has now downgraded US credit, US dollar is again going to be under pressure. But if the tariff issues is nothing more than, let's say, 10 to 15%, then broadly, I think it's going to be a sigh of relief for the entire global markets and they'll tend to rally. On the other hand, if the tariff implications are going to be more like 20% and above, then it's going to be a negative shock. But as we see the story unfolding, if China tariffs are being talked about at base case at a 10% plus something, and even in India's case, we are hearing about an FTA agreement. I mean, these are very, very positive signs as far as India is concerned. We'll try to become more competitive in the global landscape when it comes to our positioning on the exports front. This is going to be extremely positive. So this story will actually play out very well in the medium to long term. On the immediate near term basis, I think the level of tariff is going to make a difference. And of course, the US dollar and the recession probability is going to make a huge difference. At the moment, these are all quite, tending to be in favor of where we stand today.
Right. Manish, we did speak about a lot of sectors that you're liking at this point in time. Any space that you would be avoiding still that are not looking that attractive to you?
Capital goods. I mean, capital goods, broadly, if you have uncertainty around the tariffs, plus you have a portion of allocation going to defense within the overall constraints of FRBM, then this is one space where, valuation is slightly on the fuller side. Plus, you'll have some implications of capital allocation when it comes to uncertainty around the tariffs. So this is one space which could tend to underperform because of growth and valuations conundrum. But otherwise, nothing particularly per se. And the renewable space, of course, the PPAs, the uncertainty around PPAs, that's one area to watch out for because, again, out here it's the valuation. I think the biggest concern in the markets is only around valuations. Some of the names where there's decent growth, there's no comfort on valuation. So I think it's more to do with valuation, but on a sectoral basis, it's going to be renewables and capital goods.
But with respect to valuation, Manish, do you like auto space as a whole? Because majority of these two-wheeler auto counters specifically, they are almost half versus what they were in 2024 with respect to their highs. And given the sell-off, Manish, some of these experts are now liking this space once again. Are you also in one of those camps where you will be bullish on the autos, or it is in a void right now?
No, the two-wheeler space, in fact, is doing quite well. I would believe, you have roughly around 2 crore two-wheelers getting sold in FY25. And primarily the numbers per se for, even if you look at, let's say, Hero MotoCorp or TVS or a Royal Enfield, they're coming pretty decent. And I think within the automobile space, the best positioning happens to be for the two-wheeler space. And now that we are talking about a free trade agreement with the US, then obviously the autocom space, also particularly the ones catering to the export market, is likely to do quite well. And again, valuations, etc., out here have come off quite a bit, but it's actually a preference of autocoms and two-wheelers over four-wheelers at this point in time. And MSPV space, one needs to wait and watch for recovery on the growth side in terms of volumes. But that's where we stand. I think autos is broadly a neutral space, but a lot depends on how the news flows pan out around tariffs and how the growth picks up in the second half of the year.
Right. And those are the key themes to watch out for. And thank you so much for that, Manish.